before. One of the things I've been writing about a little bit recently, well, I've written a lot about actually. If you've seen the work on Field Service News, we've covered the whole conversation around remote solutions, remote service on multiple different assets. Worked with some great different solution providers to cover different aspects. Done a number of case studies. We did, the guys at Field Service News Research did some good work around a project there as well. So we've done a lot of very robust work. If that's something that you're, if that's an area you need to look at as a viewer, and head over to the Field Service News library, because there's a ton of different bits, all different angles on that. One of the things I put in one of the more recent white papers, which I wrote in partnership with PTC, I put forward the case that we really need to make sure we have an understanding when we bring remote service in of the three tiers. I always call it the caterpillar model, and I don't know why, because Professor Andy Neely at Cambridge, I'm sure he once described it to me as caterpillar's model, and I've always called it that, and then somebody pointed out that it's not on their literature anywhere, so I apologise, Caterpillar. But the essence of that is essentially, I do it for myself, I want you to do it with me, or I want you to do it for me. And those three tiers. And I can see that in what you're talking about now with this service marketing, in terms of how that we can unbundle stuff. And
Sure.
do we need to, I mean, that's the kind of nuance that I don't think an external marketeer would understand. And I think
Right.
that's one of the bits that's missing. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's a bit of an evolution. So we had something, and I'm sure it existed in the UK maybe 10, 20 years ago, where they called it the precious metals. So it would be a bronze offering, a silver offering, a
Yeah.
gold offering, a platinum offering. And it made it easy to bundle things together and sell them. But now companies are wanting more levels of customization. So we're finding that those types of tiered or bundled approaches don't work as well as the ability to really offer it on a consultative basis and design the right solution. But nevertheless, what you talked about, do it, do it for you. What was it? Do it with you.
Do it for me, do it with me, or let me do it
Yeah,
myself.
I mean that's, as you know, that's a classic model for any kind of service these days. You know,
Yeah.
if you look at anyone that's doing coaching or consulting, that's part of their offering. They have, three different offerings. But what I'm suggesting is it's got to be a little bit more complex, because the done for you, there may be 10 things, and one customer takes 8 of those things, another takes 7, another takes 4.
Is it almost a case?
And it's part of it is, yeah, I think it comes down to looking at the service delivery value chain
Yeah.
and how much of that the customer wants to own themselves and how much they need external support.
Yeah. Yeah. If funnily enough, that's exact. You need to read that paper that I've written, 'cause I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah, I will read
It's
it.
not, I'll send you a copy directly, but you can access it as a Field Service News Premium member in Field Service News Premium content, white papers. In fact, depending on when you're watching this, it may even be in the FSN standard resources as well. But one of the things people that have known me for a long time know that my original background, before I kind of got into service many, many years ago, I was a pretty mean cocktail maker, and spent a long time in hospitality before I moved into a service role and then moved into publishing. It's almost like what you're describing to me is I want an a la carte menu, which I can pick and choose from. But I also want the menu of the day, where I can go, right, I know I'm going to get all of this bundled together, and that's going to be my my free plates, and it's going to cost me X. Or actually, I just want to pick these bits, and it might be a little bit more expensive, but this is the service that I want. Is that a sensible route to kind
Yeah,
of?
yeah. In fact, the research we've been doing for decades supports that.
Yeah.
Is whenever we ask the end customer, what are they looking for in a service provider? One of the factors that was on a list is that they had a breadth of a service offering and could be a single point of contact. But it didn't necessarily mean that that's what they're going to buy. But knowing that that was available to them was what they
Yeah.
valued.
Yeah. I suppose that's the other piece, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because how often do we hear voice of the customer? How often do we hear the focus on customer, it's not customer satisfaction isn't enough anymore. It's customer experience, and in fact, that's not enough anymore. It's customer success.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You know, yeah, we know these things within service operations. We know we should be measuring NPS, and we know we should be doing sentiment analysis. And these things are, customer satisfaction for the last two benchmarking studies that Field Service News Research did around KPIs. Customer satisfaction was right up there alongside the operational metrics, and that's been consistent now for a number of years. Why aren't we doing that when it comes to marketing? Why aren't we listening to what the customer is telling us? And then, that's sales 101, isn't it? Listen to what the customer tells you and then repeat it back to them. But do it with genuine earnest now. Don't just tell them that you got that. Repeat it back, but understand that. Build our service portfolio around it and phrase it in that kind of language. So, because what you're saying there is surely not only is it common sense, but I'm sure there's a huge amount of people watching this going, well, that's gold dust. That's what we need to be doing.
Exactly.
Is that something that you're coming across, organisations that are actually going to the customers and saying, what is that? What is it?
Well, we're pushing them to do that, but I'm finding that it's either people sitting around the table figuring out what's best for the customer or talking to a handful of customers about an offering and saying, is this something you'd like? Not really deconstructing the service delivery value chain and looking at the various variations of service. Like, it's like steak versus, we'll give you steak, but do you want it medium rare? Do you want it rare? Do you want it well done? Is
Yeah,
if you think, so that'd be like a service contract, 4 hour, same day, next day, parts only, no parts, remote support, not remote support.
yeah. So it's exactly. I'm with you. So the analogy there is right. Well, you advertise yourself as a steak restaurant, but there are these choices within that, and that's when it comes down to the sales point. But the most important thing you want is people to go in there and go, "I'm here because you do good steak," and then
Right. But you got to know what cuts they like. Right. So that's where your research comes in your marketing, building
yeah.
demand.
And so how does an organisation go about researching that? Is that something that they? I mean, I know you've done work around that in the past. Is that the best route? Is to go to a specialist like yourself and say, look, we need to know this, or is that something that they should just
It
be?
can't hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to do that.
Sorry, I did without meaning to. I've put the second gratuitous plug in for you there. I always
Very
like to squeeze
grateful.
one in for yourself, but I can't
Well, I
really top
think you
that.
have to have some
Oh,
objectivity. Okay.
yeah,
So if it's someone from your organization talking to your customer, there's going to be some inherent bias. By the person asking the question, they're going to be biased. They might say they're being objective, but there might be something they're trying to lean towards, trying to see occur. Or on the opposite, there could be some bias from the person being asked the question. They might think
yeah,
this is what they want to hear, or they might assume that it's about something else.
yeah.
Or
That's
this is what
true.
I want to tell them. It has nothing to do with the question they're asking me, but I want them to hear my point of view. And then you get kind of
Yeah,
corrupted answers.
yeah. No, yeah. I can see that. I can see that. That's why a lot of the vendors engage with us to talk to our audience, because our audience know that we are a very, from the FSN research side of things, we research that because it gives us great content, which gives us a strong audience.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, you guys do a
which
good job
we
with that.
have a layer of trust that we will never ever break, and we will never go into our research thinking, putting in that patsy question of which it's the way that research marketing used to be worked, and I've always stood against that, and that gives us that layer of trust. And I suppose it's the same thing. It's that third party wanting to communicate. Um,
Exactly.
they might tell you something that they might be a little. I suppose even and yeah, even if it was a couple of chains of command away from Joe's contact. If Joe, if everything's bad with the service, well, it's good enough, not bad enough to leave. But there are a couple of things that you wish were better. But you know what? Good old Joe Bloggs, he's a really good guy. He always does his best. You don't want to get in trouble. So if Joe phones you, you're not going to really moan. And if Joe's colleague, you're thinking, well, I don't want to get Joe in trouble. It could be Joe's boss or whatever. So
Exactly.
yeah, I can see how that would skew that bias. So then that external organisation, do you say, well, this is anonymised? as
We
well?
do.
Is that a route? Is it should always be anonymized
Well,
feedback?
no,
Or
well, it depends. I mean, sometimes
yeah,
we do kind of what you do sometimes. Like
yeah,
we're looking at the use of telematics in the government fleets, and we felt that we needed to mention our client's name, the vendor, to encourage a higher
yeah.
participation rate. But other
No, but
times, if
sorry,
we're
what I mean by that is when I say anonymized, I mean the other way around. So, like, obviously you know who they are, but that feedback they're leaving is anonymous feedback to a degree where it's like
oh yeah,
it's like
yeah, we do that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because you're right. Because sometimes we saw this in focus groups. If the client knows the person who's in the focus group, they might discount. Oh, that guy always was very opinionated. We can't put much credibility into it.
yeah,
But just because that's their opinion doesn't mean that it's true, right? Even if it is opinionated, there's something in that opinion that's a value that you need to listen to.
yeah.
So I think